Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust Television, and it's the second segment of the discussion we're having on Daybreak this morning. And before now, there's been a lot of people declaring for president, and the latest is that of the People's Democratic Party, where a former vice president of Nigeria Wednesday in Abuja officially declared his intention to run for the People's Democratic Party presidential ticket ahead of the 2023 general elections. And ATIKU's declaration comes 7 days to the 2-week deadline given to the PDP zoning committee to make recommendations for the zoning of the various elective positions before the elections. So we'll take a look at this context of zoning, and but to do that, to talk more about the declaration of the former vice president of Nigeria, ATIKU Abubakar, and also the zoning, we're being joined by a PDP stalwart, Umar Sani. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So we also have someone from Port Harcourt is on standby. He will join in the discussion as well. But let's start from you, sir. You know, the vice president, the former vice president of Nigeria, ATIKU Abubakar, this is the 6th time he's running for president in the country. And after what happened the last time, a lot of people had doubts if he was going to come out to declare his intention to run for president. What's the motivation for the former vice president of Nigeria, ATIKU Abubakar, this time?
Well, let me express my sentiments to say, although I'm not his spokesperson,
okay,
but I believe ATIKU Abubakar is motivated by what is generally happening within the country. The general unemployment rate, the poverty situation, the insecurity, the corruption within the public sector, and of course, the economy that is fast declining. And so Nigerians need somebody who can fix all these things. The unity of the country is at stake. So many separatist movements for self-determination and so forth and so on. So these are genuine issues and germane to the unity, stability, growth and prosperity of Nigeria. And as such, we need a leader. And the general issue is that of leadership. We have not gotten the right leadership. That is why there are these agitations of marginalization and so forth and so on. If we have gotten the right leadership that understands and appreciates the issues on ground, all these issues will not have arisen. Most especially those for self-determination. Yes.
All right, so now we also have joining us from Port Harcourt, the spokesperson of PANDEF and also a member of the PDP, Ken Robinson. Good morning and thanks for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Good morning, Trust TV and viewers, wherever you're viewing us in the world. Good morning. And let me do it.
All right, so now ATIKU has actually set the record, and this is the 6th time he's actually running, for elections, since for a while now. And, what is the motivation for the Turaki of Adama? Okay, so we're having difficulties, with our guest all the way from Port Harcourt. Let's come back to our guest in the studio. Now, ATIKU has actually declared his intention, it's all known, and he has actually given out his 5-point agenda, what he hopes to actually work on. And there's been so many promises in the past, and, nothing has actually been done about it. What makes his agenda different and unique?
Well, let me first and foremost say that ATIKU's agenda is not in isolation of the PDP manifesto. It was gotten from the PDP manifesto.
Okay.
And the manifesto of the PDP has been laid bare, and Nigerians have seen our manifesto earlier on. We have had an Obasanjo ATIKU 8 years of presidency, and they have laid bare their manifesto. One of them was debt relief, and we were almost debt free during their tenure. So many technological advancements were made, in terms of the internet and the telephonic systems and so forth and so on. And there were gainful employments. The prices of food items within the country was relatively very stable, and we had a lot of fight against corruption, because it was during the Obasanjo ATIKU era that so many anti-corruption agencies came into existence. The EFCC Act, the ICPC Act, the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit was separated from the AFCC, all intended to fight corruption. And so they did their best during their time. Nigerians were very excited that for the first time, public servants were arrested and dealt with on the issues of corruption. And so, but with this declaration here, the issues of corruption, the only convictions we have had of high-profile corruption of public servants were those that were generated by the PDP, of Darie and Reverend Jolie Iyame. They were all cases that came up during the PDP era. So I think, by and large, if you take a holistic look at it, you will see that the PDP has always run a very good, transparent, and humane government that has made Nigerians always, ask for more of the PDP. Well, there was a time Nigerians wanted change, and they wanted change, and they got the change, and the change now metamorphosed into next level. Now the next level has now reached its own final level, and so we are now at the verge of taking over, because with nostalgia, Nigerians are remembering the past. And the Hausa adage has it that anytime you remember the past, the present is not good.
All right, let's. We've been able to reconnect with our guest from Port Harcourt, Mr. Ken Robinson. Good morning once again, and thank you so much for joining us. Holders meeting, to finalize zoning would actually hold later in the day. And, there are questions about why some presidential aspirants are actually jumping the gun, before the meeting. Okay, we seem to have an issue with his connection. Let's, direct that question to you,
well,
Mr. Umar.
Let me clearly state that the issue of zoning has been a very vexatious issue within the PDP. It has been vexatious because each segment of the society, as we are in Nigeria, has one reason or the other to argue that power must shift to its own side. If you take, for instance, the Southeast, they have argued that, one, they have been a stronghold of the PDP. Since the PDP was established, the PDP has never lost the Southeast, and they have never gotten the presidency. So their argument is that this is their time, this time around. Now the South are also arguing that, of course, they are also a stronghold of the PDP, and they have done it only once, and so they want to do it again, and so that at least they should have that feeling, that which is embedded in our constitution, that opportunities for all, equal opportunities for everybody. So they also want to, they believe, of course, they are part of the minority, but that they can rise to any position.
I understand the PDP set up a 37-man committee on the zoning. And of course, ATIKU during his speech talked about unity. And recently, the South-South leaders had their meeting, the Southwest leaders had their meeting, and they agreed that it will be zoned to the South this time. And now we have ATIKU, of course, he's not from the South. Where do we place this? How do PDP intend to play out this when the election starts?
I was trying to come to that. Now, if you take the general holistic look Now, the Southeast and the South-South are arguing, holistically, that in the whole of the Nigerian context, power must shift because the North has done 8 years, or it is going to do 8 years with Buhari, and of course Umar Musa Yar'Adua had done 2 years, and then in totality 10 years. But in the real context of the matter, it is a party affair, and as a party affair, political parties chart their course, and they have their own zoning. Now, the PDP cannot behave like the APC or Accord Party or any other party. We have to behave within the context of our arrangement. And the PDP Constitution, Section 7, recognizes that the zoning is acceptable within our party. Now, taking a look at the 16 years of the PDP, the North has only done it for 2 years. Obasanjo did 8 years, and President Goodluck Jonathan did 1 year as acting president and 1 year as a substantive president, and he was re-elected for another 4 years. So if in totality, you have 14 years out of the 16 years of the PDP. And of course, he also went for re-election in 2015, President Goodluck Jonathan, and he didn't get it. So if he had gotten it, it would have been, the South would have gotten it for about 20 years. Now, perhaps. Now, the North argued for it in 2019 within the PDP and got ATIKU on the ticket, but he didn't win. Still, the North felt, no, this is still our time. So we have to, somebody must get it before we will be assumed to have taken our chance. And so these are the contending issues within the party, and because of that, some other reasons were also brought up. For instance, most of the people who are contesting for the presidency at the moment within the PDP, especially from the North, have at one point or the other abandoned the party. For instance, Governor Tambuwal had defected to APC before he finally defected back to PDP. Bukola Saraki had defected to APC before defecting back to PDP. Apart only perhaps Bala Mohammed has Senator Bala Mohammed. But if you take a look at mostly all the presidents, ATIKU has also defected to APC at one point and then came back to PDP. So the argument is that they have abandoned. If Konkoso is also a member, is also vying for the presidency, he has also defected and has come back. So the argument has always been within the party that why should defectors now be the ones enjoying the perquisites of the party when the party is approaching a period where it is assumed. Was that a reason why Tambuwal was not given the chance? Because he was going to declare for president from PDP, rather. Yes, no, he is still contesting.
Okay, now
yes.
On the primaries. Before we continue, let's quickly take this report on Atiku's declaration.
He declares for the 6th term to contest for the presidency. Atiku Abubakar says his persistent push for the #1 political seat is propelled by the spirit of the Nigerian dream.
Who could have ever imagined an 11-year-old village orphan who had to rear other people's cattle to raise money to feed his family would have the opportunity to go to school for free, raise through the cadre of a decent profession, establish successful businesses, and become the vice president of this great country? That is the Nigerian dream, and that is my story.
He says such a dream, shared by many Nigerians, could only come through if there is visionary and credible leadership in place.
Our fundamental principles and purpose as a nation have never been challenged as it is today. Presently, Nigeria is a sinking ship. It must be rescued urgently. That is why I am happy to announce my candidacy for the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The wazir in Adamawa, who painted a picture of a country working on Parajai robe due to negative trajectories, assured he has the necessary antidotes to reverse the trend.
I want to focus on 5 key areas: unity of Nigeria, security, economy, education, and devolving more resources and powers to the federative units.
As the PDP decides on where to zone its presidential seat in the face of conflicting interests, such decision is critical to what he described as his last chance to keep hope alive. Stakeholders in the party say it has to choose between zoning and winning the 2023 presidential contest. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
To talk about how it's all about ensuring that the PDP wins in 2023, because as it's clear to all of us, the APC is too much engulfed in its own internal crisis that cannot provide leadership for this country. And my view is you cannot administer your party, you cannot administer the government. So we have to make sure that we too get the house in order, and not only to ensure unity. And that's the purpose of us coming together to discuss the need that we must put the country's interests before our personal interests. We have met and we're going to continue to meet, and as we said, we're also going to brief Waziri Adama of our findings, of our resolutions, of our issues, to see how we're going, and other, not only him, and everybody else that's interested in contesting, so that the PDP is a united family going forward, because the issue now is that we have a great responsibility to fix this country, and we cannot do that if we are all bickering over because of our personal interests.
Welcome back. This is still Daybreak on Trust Television. You've seen the report. And right now we're being joined by the spokesperson of the former Vice President of Nigeria, and also a candidate who will be vying for the presidential position in 2023. Paul Ibe is here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so from what we've seen in that report, your principal did talk about a lot of things that he would do if he becomes the president of the country. He talked about security, economy, talked about unity, and he talked about a whole lot of things. How does he plan to achieve all of this?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, there is no doubt that the biggest challenge that we face presently, the people and the country, has to do with, unity. We've never been this divided, in this country. And coupled with the fact is the other issue of, insecurity. And whether you like it or not, there are relationships with, between the two. Some policies, of the present government has alienated a lot of people, and those people have decided to, to become a, nuisance, to our society. Banditry, it's all over the place, kidnapping, and by a stroke of a policy, you can bring people, you can integrate them into the system. And we've seen situations where people have been shut out, out of the system, politically, economically, and that does not portend well, for our society. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic, diverse country, and you need to take into consideration carrying everybody along as you put policies, forward. Nobody must be made to feel like they are second-class citizens. Otherwise, they will make things very difficult for the rest of us. So there is a need to get people, back into the system. There is a need to give Nigerians a sense of belonging. That's where the issue of unity comes in. And then, of course, that has implications, to the security. And it's all about leadership.
Okay.
With the right leadership, you can be able to espouse policies, that will promote, the transformation of the economy, that will fix all of the damages, that we've had with the, with the structure, the issue of the, devolution of powers, of giving more resources, and more responsibility to the states.
Okay.
I mean, whether you like it or not, a lot of development, a lot of all of that, happens, in our country has to come from the, the lower rungs. And so the states, the subnational groups need to be given more responsibility and more resources, to be able to accomplish the tasks that they have set for themselves.
Okay, now Atiku actually referred to Nigeria as a sinking ship and, asked Nigerians to choose between unity and division. He also said that, if PDP should lose their chance in the next elections, that they might not have a chance, again to win any other election. Now, right now, what chances will the PDP have against APC, that is actually prepared to zone, to the south?
Well, it's about priority. As a political party, the PDP needs to come together to look at all of the options that are available to it. But the most important is the winnability, the ability to win an election. Every political party goes into a contest with a view to winning an election so that they can be in government and be able to implement whatever policies they have set for themselves. So if the PDP does not win an election, the issue of being in government, it's totally, it's neither here nor there. It will not be possible. So they need to position themselves in such a way that they'll be able to win the election. And so they have to look at all of the, the challenges, before them, and then be able to prioritize which of them is more important. And if you ask me, it's the ability to zone to a candidate who, above all other candidates, it's able to present them with the best opportunity of winning an election.
But even before Atiku's declaration, there are reports that even within the PDP, there are people, stakeholders who didn't want him to run for the elections or vie for presidency.
Well, I don't know what that means. The Constitution is very clear about who is qualified to run an election, and you want to take away, the constitutional rights of an individual to contest election. That's a new one.
Okay, let's come back to you, sir, about PDP taking a risk. I've heard from different quarters, or let's say the political giants out there talking about PDP gambling or doing this again with the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Do you see PDP, coming out victorious at the end of this?
You see, as it is now, Nigerians have lost confidence in the ruling party. And as such, the only alternative is the PDP. The PDP has provided leadership, which were glorious for 16 years. And so Nigerians have had the opportunity to make a comparative analysis and say, okay, 16 years of these people and 8 years of these people. And at 8 years, we're almost heading to the abyss. So Nigerians know that any reasonable, very good candidate the PDP presents will take the day. So far, from the candidates available, I do not see anybody that towards above Waziri in terms of experience, exposure, and in terms of intellectual capacity.
Okay, Mr. Paul Ibe, do you see your principal coming out victorious at the end of the day?
Sorry, I didn't hear the come again.
Do you see your principal coming out victorious? He just said that for now there are no candidates that he has seen that can contend with your principal. Do you agree with him?
We are not, make no mistake about it. We are not saying that there are no candidates. And what we're saying is that Atiku Abubakar towers over and above, whatever it is that is available presently. You see, Nigeria is at a junction. Nigeria is at crossroads. Like somebody said yesterday at the declaration, event. Nigeria is at an ICU, and the signs are there. The signs are there. They're very clear, And this administration appears to have lost it all, in terms of all of the things that it has hoped to, to do as a government. And, you cannot spend the best part of 8 years, criticizing the government that you had replaced. You were brought as a transformational, government to change all of the things that were wrong with the system. But 7 years down the line, nothing appears to have changed. It's getting worse, by the day. So what do you need? You need a man with the capacity. You need a man with the experience, a man who has done it.
Okay.
Look at the trajectory of his, of his political life, and a man in his private capacity, has a knack for bringing people together, has a knack for creating jobs. So
right.
these things he can replicate, when he has opportunity, to preside over the affairs of our country.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate your presence here in the studio and discussing this issue with us this morning, Mr. Folibe. Thank you very much for being here.
All right, so that was spokesman of ATIKU, Abubakar, Paul Ibe, and also PDP stalwart in the studio, Omar Sani. Thank you so much for joining us once again. With that, we've come to the end of, Daybreak right here on Trust TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same station. I'm Dashan Husseina Usman.
And I am Martia Umar.